Hey, it's Kyle here, and today I'll be reviewing Star Wars High Republic Convergence. This is the first adult novel in the second phase of the High Republic series. Now, if that sounds confusing, it probably means you haven't been reading the High Republic series. The High Republic series, Phase 1, which came out basically last year, was a series of novels, adult novels, young adult novels, middle school novels, comic books, that was basically set 200 years before the event of the prequel movies. Phase 2 is even going farther back and going back another 150 years. And the concept is kind of exploring the period of the Republic when the Republic was at its height. It is its most powerful, most prosperous, most peaceful. And same with the Jedi. It's kind of the height of the Jedi Order, kind of the golden age for both. And it's kind of exploring what was happening in this period and what, kind of applying what led to the weakening of the Republic and the Jedi that allowed Emperor Palpatine to rise. So Phase 1 was some of the most amazing Star Wars books I've ever read. Absolutely love it. Phase 2 just has started in the past month or so, and as I said, Convergent is the first adult novel in Phase 2. On the positive side, I enjoyed Convergence. On the non-positive side, it was probably my least favorite of the adult novels in the High Republic series so far. There were elements of the book I really enjoyed and really loved. There were some characters who have become some of my favorite in the High Republic series so far. There were some plot points I found very, very interesting. There was nothing in the book I hated, but there were some parts of the book that I just found so-so, or I kind of felt like maybe some possibilities were missed in the storytelling or character development. Now, it's always hard to judge a book that's in the middle of the series because some of your complaints might be addressed in the very next book, and you go, well, that thing I didn't like, it was addressed in the very next book, and now my complaint's no longer valid. But at least for this book, that kind of took away my enjoyment some. So I still enjoyed the book, but again, the least favorite of my adult novels in the High Republic series. So first off, I'd say, if you've been reading the High Republic series, definitely start reading Phase 2. I think there's some cool concepts they're exploring, and I think it's definitely going to pay off. But I would say just go into it, knowing one, if you weren't aware, it's set before Phase 1. So you're going back in time. So you're not really dealing with any of the characters that you got to know in Phase 1. You're kind of seeing what led to the events that happened in Phase 1, or kind of be setting up in Phase 2, if that makes sense. So first off, I wanted to focus on some of the elements of the story that I really liked. One of my favorite characters was Axel. He is the son of one of the chancellors of the Republic, and you heard me right, there's two chancellors. And I found Axel very interesting. The first half of the book to me was a little slow, and I wasn't getting into it some parts of the storyline, but every chapter that came along that was focusing more on Axel, I was like, this is really cool. Especially at the beginning of the book, he's in Coruscant, so it's very interesting to kind of see Coruscant during this time period. He was actually kind of like the lower levels, the seedy elements, like at a casino and bars and stuff like that. He very much comes off as a rich, privileged jerk, so the type of person that you would hate, but it's very fascinating to read about and very entertaining to read about. So I was really enjoying his character, and kind of segueing into another thing I liked as a political science nerd, which that's my degree in college is in political science. Very early in the book, they mentioned that the Republic has two chancellors. And I immediately like, whoa, two chancellors. I hope we're going to learn more about that. And we got some little tidbits of why there's two chancellors. It's not like this was a standard thing. It's basically two individuals decided to run for chancellor and basically campaign on the idea that two chancellors would work better than one. And basically one chancellor would be set on Coruscant, and the other one would be kind of more in the areas that the Republic was expanding to, and kind of almost being like the roving chancellor on the scene as events happened kind of on the frontier. So which I found is a very interesting, cool concept, and I'm kind of liking that they're doing some different political stuff, how the Republic is set up at this time period, even compared to how the Republic was set up in Phase 1. Early in the book, we get some time with both chancellors. I found them very interesting. In fact, one of my complaints about the book is both the chancellors are kind of in the first half of the book, a decent amount, and then they're just kind of dropped. One of the chancellors gets a few lines here and there, but he goes from being what you think is going to be maybe a major character in this novel to he just kind of steps aside. He's not really that involved. And the other chancellor, once the storyline leaves Coruscant, she basically falls out of the story until the very end. So it felt like that possibility was dropped. I would have liked to see more from both those chancellors, maybe check in with them every once in a while. Especially the chancellor on the scene where the events were happening. I would love to see him kind of stay a major character in the plot instead of like just kind of falling to the wayside. The concept behind what's driving the action in this book I found very cool. It's basically the Forever War, which is actually referenced in Phase 1 and is referenced a lot in the young adult novel that kicked off Phase 2. But basically there's these two planets where a moon is in the middle of, they share a moon, and these two planets just have a history of fighting. And there's been some brief periods of peace, but pretty much they're always at war. And the Jedi and the Republic happen to be on the scene of the latest flare-up in the war that's currently going on. And they're attempting to try to figure out some way to finally bring an end to this hostilities with the idea if the Republic and the Jedi can do this, it opens up the possibility of the Republic expanding into this territory. Both these planets are ruled by monarchies, and two of the main characters in this storyline are the prince and princess of both these planets. And basically them deciding, we don't want to be a part of our parents' wars. How can we find a way forward to find peace? So I don't want to get into too much of what they decide to do because I think that's too much of a plot spoiler, but it definitely revolves around this younger generation trying to figure out a way out of the war that they feel like their older generation has got them stuck in an endless cycle of violence. Another character I found very interesting is a Jedi Knight, Gala, I believe is how you pronounce her name. And I found her very interesting because she's very much a Jedi that's trying to find her place in the Order and in the Force. And she's kind of not sure where her path is heading. And I really like that they use the storyline to kind of get her to almost test her beliefs and what the Force and what the Order means to her. And I found her character very, very interesting. But like I said, there are parts of the book that just kind of felt a little, slow moving. There's a few parts of the book, honestly, where I had a hard time following the action because it seemed like it would jump around a lot in a chapter from character to character. And for a second, like, wait, did we jump around? And I had to go back and read back. It's like, no, the one paragraph, they just kind of randomly jumped to another character from a different perspective. So that threw me off a few times. So the first half of the book, I wasn't that big of a fan of. The second half of the book, to me, became a lot more enjoyable, and I really liked it a lot. And it actually turned into a book that I did enjoy. But the first part was a little bit of a slow read. It took me, honestly, a few days of reading before I really got into it and got into kind of groove with reading the book and getting a feeling for the story, and kind of was able to then finish the book within a day or two. The other part of the book, and so far Phase 2 that I guess probably the biggest complaint about Phase 2 has been the focus has been very narrow, just on a couple planets, where Phase 1 was very much looking at the entire Republic and the entire, Star Wars universe, all the planets. So it's a very big scale scope. Events that were impacting everybody. Where here, so far in Phase 2, it's been very, very narrow focus. Now, I think it's going to build up and we're going to get wider scale stories so far as we go deeper into Phase 2, I should say. But the beginning, it's just been very, very narrowly focused, and I haven't really enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed the more grandiose stories of Phase 1. So like I said, overall, I enjoyed it. I'm still excited to read The High Republic, so if you enjoyed Phase 1, I would definitely check out Phase 2 and start reading that, because there's some interesting concepts they're exploring. I think it's going to have a great payoff. I think once we finish Phase 2, we might look back at these books like Convergence that maybe, like for somebody like me, didn't enjoy as much and be like, all right, I still didn't enjoy as much, but I see what they were doing and what they had to establish to get where they wanted to go with Phase 2. So that's my overall thoughts on Star Wars High Republic Convergence. Let me know in the comment section below if you've read this book. What did you think? If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you have yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. I hope to see you next time. Happy reading, and may the Force be with you.